The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Come to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of BeAuSm. Find positivity throughout your life and work. Just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.
Hello and happy new year, BeAuSm listeners, followers, supporters. This is me, Joshua Peach, without the co-host with the most, Mark Resnick. He is in the laboratory trying to dissect the final pieces of our book. We'll give a little bit of an update on that on the end. But I'm excited to have a guest here. We met through your wife's sister's husband, who was my childhood friend, said, hey, you got to do a podcast with this family. They're doing some really cool stuff. And I had just launched BeAuSm. I went in the Wayback Machine. It was March 18th, 2019, that I went to the Teravainen's house. And I sat in their dining room while their dog that looks like an Ewok would not leave me alone. And I loved every second of it. And I got to meet Dennis, and we became friends and been friends since, and came to the point where I said, hey, come on in. Let's talk about what you've been up to, because you've been up to a whole lot. So welcome back. This is a little different from the dining room.
It is.
Yeah.
I was trying to think back to the actual day. I knew it was pre-2020, and that was a great way to kick things off with the podcast experience. It was fun.
So that was it. It's tell me again. It's the month of March, and
Yes.
You guys created the Gus's. What is the national thing?
So it's Random Acts of Kindness. It is a celebration of World Down Syndrome Day, March 21st, which is 3/21. Basically, grassroots movement that Michelle, I have to give credit to, because she used 99% of it. And basically, people doing just fun acts of kindness to celebrate and pass the word on. And it caught a viral movement locally and then beyond. And it's something she continues to celebrate every March. And it's been a lot of fun. A lot of people get
How many cards do you guys give out? And people make their own too. But I know that one year I saw that was like 5,000 or some crazy number.
Yeah, there's at least 5,000. We've had some very generous participants who contribute towards it, and people who print out their own if they're not local. But Michelle sets up a box outside the house, and however many people want, she puts into an envelope. People stop by, the dog's going crazy, and they pick up and they take them with them and do their own thing.
Yeah, I think it's such a cool thing. You can think about it and be like, man, do we really have to do this? Like telling people to do an act of kindness. We do. Like it's sad we do, right? I talk to a lot of people about gratitude and other things, and it's like a lot of people never get told thank you. A lot of people don't know how much that means, or a lot of people don't have anything given to them or an opportunity that's put to them, so they don't know how to handle that or to give that back. And so I think programs like this actually do get people to do acts of kindness beyond March 21st, which is cool. But it builds a nice, at least you have the month of March to look forward to go into a grocery store and find a $5 bill under a box of cereal or something. Because I've seen, people, I've actually witnessed that one of the grocery stores, someone did put money under a jar or something with the card on it.
Oh, there's so many great ideas. That's a perfect one. I think the greatest part about that entire exercise is that it could be something that costs you no money at all. Yep. Or if you want to be elaborate, so be it. There's a complete blank slate, and people just run with it to do whatever they feel like it's. And there's no money made or exchange. It's solely for the purpose of that moment of just doing something nice for someone else, and you get a buzz from it. It's such a great feeling. I mean, whether it's buying the coffee for the person behind you at Dunkies, or if it's the sauce in the aisle. I like going to Pops and trying to see if there's something I can do to help support the local businesses, and everybody is super enthusiastic, and they do what they can to get involved.
Yeah, that was 2019. I was at an event on the 21st, and Governor Baker, the governor of Massachusetts at that time, was there, and so he wrapped up, and I had 2 BeAuSm coffee mugs and 2 $5 Starbucks gift cards. So I put the gift cards in the coffee mug, and I put the ticket that says what the reason why, and I go to give him to him. He's like, I can't take this. I said, don't worry, it's under the Massachusetts state threshold. I already looked it up. These mugs were made in China. They're cheap. Don't worry, it's under the $20 or whatever. And I got a picture with him and had a laugh, and was able to expose to the governor of Massachusetts. Maybe it should be a statewide thing that people initiate. Who knows? But no, really cool stuff. And life has moved in a lot of different directions. Personally, professionally for you over the last couple of years. You're a lawyer.
Yes.
One of the best, I would argue. One of the best I know anyway.
Thank you.
You're pretty smart, right? You got to be pretty smart to be a lawyer.
I don't know. I think it's relative. I think like any occupation, you're going to have those who are, the brilliant ones at one end, and those who are the hustlers on another.
Yeah.
I don't know where I fit on there.
Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
That's good. No, but so first of all, let's walk through because lawyers get all sorts of different monikers and things around the world, but one, it's a necessary, right? It's needed on both sides of the house.
Sure.
But what does that process look like? I went to high school, and lawyer was definitely not in the cards because it required a lot of school and testing, and I don't do either of those well. So what did it take for you to actually have a seat where you had lawyer on your?
I think like everybody else, I almost stumbled into it. Part of it was simply just enjoying debating and arguing, but in a controlled and organized way, trying to prove your point, but also where you're advocating on behalf of someone. The moment where I knew the path was right for me, I was in law school. I was in an intensive civil clinic, and it was located in Chelsea. We represented a lot of people who were being evicted, and I was representing a woman who had moved here, and mind you, this is early 2000s. Mm-hmm. She had moved here from Afghanistan. She had been persecuted by the Taliban. Mm-hmm. She lived in this home. She was habitually late on her rent, and that is a legitimate grounds to move to evict someone, but I had been able to locate some kind of case, and my teacher was there with me as a student lawyer. You're allowed to argue in court as long as you're supervised. Mm-hmm. And I was going up against a seasoned veteran who was representing the landlord. And the night before, I found some case that had just come out, and I was able to incorporate it into my argument. Mm-hmm. And being up there, I was nervous as hell, but
I was going to say this your first. You're probably still nervous in every case. There's probably has to be some butterflies. Like I go up on stage every time. There's a nerve that kicks, but
absolutely, yeah. If you don't, I think that.
Well, I'm not going up against. I'm not going up against anybody. You are, right?
Sure.
You're. I can go up and say whatever I want, and the audience is going to listen or not listen. You're going up. You're saying something, knowing that whatever side you're on, that there's somebody on the other side that's going to throw conflict and question and frustration and everything else. You know that's coming, so there has to be some,
without question. No, I feel like if you're not nervous, if you're not feeling those butterflies, then something might be wrong, right? And so in that moment, having the opportunity to clearly articulate what it was that I was arguing for, citing to this case that I found, being able to make that connection with the judge, who kind of smiled knowing I was a student, and looking over to opposing counsel said, well, what is your response? And we ended up getting her an extended period of time for her to be able to remain there while she was able to find substitute housing. But I think that was kind of the moment where I thought, okay, I don't know if I'm going to be in this particular field, but I know I like that experience. And it was checking all the boxes for me. And it was a interesting experience, law school itself. Just I went at night at Suffolk in Boston, so I worked full time during the day. So for the night students, people are coming from all sorts of walks of life. It's people who are on their second career, or people who are commuting from a long distance, people who are all of the night students basically are working at least a part-time job, if not a full-time job. So you're getting your own education during the day while you're taking your tests and doing your homework. And so that was a great introduction. And living in Boston and being in Massachusetts, it was a good, well-rounded education before we actually launched into the practice space.
Yeah. And so you do all that. And I always say that, the hardest parts are the parts that we look back and we go, those were the good old days.
True.
Right? The things that we chase after, like you're going to be, when we get into where you're at today, you're going to be the most accomplished legal firm in the world. You're going to have galactic totality. Everyone's going to be knocking on your door and all this stuff. And regardless, like you're going to look back at some point, if you haven't already, and be like, man, those were like the hardest times, but those were like the best times. Like you never thought like, I can't do this. You just were in it. And even when you thought you couldn't do it, you still persevered because you're like, well, I didn't come this far to just come this far. I got to keep on going. Right. And then you're like, you think about it, you're like, wow, this is really good. I mean, we're doing it now. I was in a software company. When I met you, I was working for a software company, and, I started in 2004 with it. And we started we had our first office. It had like 4 or 5 offices, and there was 13 or 14 employees. And we were scrappy and, sleeping on, everybody was at the time single and, no families or anything else, and sleeping on people's couches and just doing whatever it took, and doubling up in hotel rooms. And, everybody that talks about, when I tell the story, they're like, oh my God, that was terrible. Like you didn't have your own hotel room. Oh, you didn't do this. You guys you stayed at each other's houses for weeks on end. And we're like, yeah, we did. And like, why'd you do that? I'm like, because it was fun. Like we didn't realize it at the time because we wanted to get to this place, this pinnacle. And the reality is when we got to that place where we were, the de facto standard and everybody knew our name and all that stuff, it wasn't fun. And it actually it stopped being fun because then everybody wanted to be a part of that. Nobody wants to be a part of it when you're grinding. Nobody wants to be a part of stuff when you're digging deep and having the hard stuff, right? They want to be with you when you're at the top.
Right.
And so, I always think those good old days are the best. Like you just sit there and you're like, oh, and going to school at night. Like now it's Zoom, right?
Oh yeah.
Now it's not going into Boston to Suffolk or Wentworth or any of these other schools in
right.
there. You can just go at the comfort of your home, and there's still a lot of work to it, but just that whole thing, I still have to go back to Massasoit to get my last couple of credits and get out of triple secret probation at some point. Hope my kids aren't listening to this.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Well, that's so. My fiance Amy, she's the one that she's that person, right? She neither of us had graduated college. Both of us went to community college. Neither of us finished at our earlier ages in life, and our oldest son, who's now getting ready to go to college, when he was growing up, she said, I'm not going to be that parent that says, do as I say, not as I do. And she put herself through getting her bachelor's degree.
For her.
And she got her bachelor's degree, and she was the top of her class and all of that stuff. And now she's going back. She's going back to get her master's now. So she's the one that's like, I'm never going to tell my kids to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. I'm the one that's like, school just doesn't work. it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit my box. I've been trying to get like honorary. I see Shaq and all these other people getting these honorary degrees. I'm like, why can't I get one?
Well, hey, that's something that could still be out there. You never know.
Yeah. So, but no, that's very cool. And so you go through your school. You got to pass a bar exam, which everybody talks about. It is that hard.
That was crazy. It was intense.
Yeah.
I stopped working for that summer.
Mm-hmm.
Took a class that was in person and would study in the library after we were done for the day. That was like a 2-month marathon training kind of thing.
Yeah.
And fortunately, you were waiting in limbo for a couple months after you take it, and then I think by Thanksgiving you find out if you've passed.
Yeah, well, that's
was
kind of messed up.
Yeah,
that makes or breaks Thanksgiving.
And this could have changed. This was in 2002, so we're going back a few years. But that was a anticipation of it's either going to be relief or absolute crushing disappointment, one or the other.
The only hope I had that I could do something like that was Leonardo DiCaprio making it look so easy in Catch Me If You Can.
Fair, yeah.
But he even said he studied, so
that's true.
So you pass the bar exam and you decide, hey, you're gonna go work someplace for someone or and what type of law did you decide to? Because that's the other thing. You're not just a lawyer. Like you and I've talked about law stuff, right?
Right.
I call you about everything.
That's my role for friends and family.
Yeah,
I'm the conciliary.
Yeah. Before I go for true consult.
Right.
There's so much. Like there's a wall of books on the different types of law, the different types of lawyers.
Yes.
And things that you like. You can't be a one size fits all lawyer.
It definitely, you're best suited to find a specialist in whatever that issue may be. But I mean, to your point, if somebody who I'm related to that lives in Florida or Texas will call, say, I have this issue with, who tax issue could be trust and estates, and say, that's great. You should call someone in that state who practices that, because I'm only going to know enough to be dangerous. But when I graduated in 2002, the economy was not strong. And this is a good illustration too of how much the process of applying for a job has changed. I responded to a Craigslist ad to be the chauffeur for the Middlesex District Attorney. And it was Martha Coakley at the time. Yeah. I went through the application process. She interviewed me. I had zero connections politically. Yeah. There was no leverage.
Craigslist.
Literally Craigslist. As she says, what are you doing applying for this job? This is usually somebody who might be, a child of someone in law enforcement who is looking to enhance their resume. I explained it. I couldn't find a job. I just thought it'd be a good opportunity to witness and see what she does on a day-to-day basis. And she said, well, thanks, but no thanks. But if something comes up, I'll give you a call. And I thought, okay, this is too bad. I doubt I'll ever hear from her.
I can't even be a chauffeur in the industry. Yeah.
So I went back to my temp job or whatever it was I was doing. And then I was living at the time with 3 other guys. Basically, it was a holding tank for people before they go and get engaged in Boston. Yeah. And the phone rings one day, and someone's holding the phone and said, the district attorney's on the phone for you? A house line. I didn't even have a cell phone. Yeah. And I talked to her, said, hey, I have this position. It's a little atypical. It's you'd be a prosecutor, but you would be basically working to have whatever assets are seized in a drug-related arrest to have it forfeited to the police department that made the arrest and to the district attorney's offices. Great. It's actually being a lawyer. I would be in court. Sign me up. And it was so cool to have that. I never would have thought this was my way to start. I was basically embedded with the state troopers who were overseeing the undercover narcotics arrests for Middlesex County. And it was a lot of cars and cash, occasionally houses, believe it or not. But if it wasn't just for a possession related offense, it had to be possession with intent or actual distribution or trafficking. It was in court basically as much as I wanted. I was meeting the clerks, I'm filing documents in hand, walking across the street, and also hanging out with the state troopers, playing in their softball games, going to the basketball game and hanging out. But mind you, I started the ACLU at Suffolk in the night program, which I hope still exists there. So talk about opposite ends. And it helped remind me, though, that you are going to find great people no matter what side or of a particular issue that you believe in. And it's all about relationships and finding common ground. So it was a good practical experience and real life experience. The only drawback is prosecutors are not well paid right out of law school. And it wasn't that I wanted to get rich. It was just that I was bartending on the side. Yeah. I was donating my body to science, medical studies to supplement the income, doing focus groups. Yeah,
sleep studies, donating blood.
So that I did that for 2 years, and then I ended up going into civil litigation, and I went to a private firm, specifically doing insurance defense.
Oh, thought I turned this off. I'm sorry.
Is that Lionel Richie?
Yeah, it is Lionel Richie. Hello. I turn that thing off every single time, and That time I didn't, and that's a weird name, so I'm not going to answer that anyway.
All good.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. So that was the beginning of, it helped me focus more of what I do now. So I actually was representing individuals, businesses, anybody who had an insurance policy who was being sued, usually for a personal injury. And that was my introduction to civil litigation on basically situations where somebody's being sued and someone needed to be defended from that case.
Wow. And so you defended the person hurt, not the person that where they got hurt or whatever. Like,
no, the opposite.
So you help the companies.
So if, like, say for a car accident, we have someone who rear ends another motorist, and the person who does the rear ending is insured with Hartford.
Yeah.
Hartford then says, okay, as part of the insurance, we have to arrange for representation for the person who's about to get sued or has already been sued. This was for the first 15, 16 years of my career. That's what I did, was I was defending whoever was being sued, if it was a business, a homeowner, a car owner. So I was working in conjunction with the insurance company to either, offer settlements eventually or go to trial and see what outcome we might get there.
That had to be hard.
Yeah.
I don't know where I step past my boundary of asking questions, but that, to me, that just seems like that, because you have, and I don't know when this started, in the 80s maybe, where the country became extremely litigious. Like when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, it's like you slipped, fell, hurt yourself, something. I mean, the statute of limitations has expired on this, and I don't think they'd sue anyway. But you know what? Well, we were like 12 or 13 years old. I had a friend of mine. I had a BMX bike that had death pedals. It had like metal teeth on it, and he shot the pedal back. And it hit him right in the shin. Had to get stitches, all sorts of stuff. And my family's like, "We'll pay the medical bills. We'll do anything." Parents paid it. Their parents paid it. They would never thought of a litigious, lawsuit of any sort. Back then, it was like, you hurt yourself too bad. You slip and fall in a supermarket. Should have worn different shoes, right? And all of a sudden, something happened, and I want to. And I don't. This is where lawyers get a bad name.
Sure.
And the lawyers that I'm going to call out on it probably going to come sue me. But the 888 whatever, the heavy hitters and all the
billboards,
the Jerry Springer commercials.
Sure.
Right. Every single commercial on Jerry Springer's is like, have you been hurt at work? Have you been this? Have you been that? And it's like, and it's hard, right? And there are legitimate things that happen that cause a lawsuit to happen.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot that don't, and there's a lot that are fixed, right? But you have to do the hard job of figuring out, you're defending Hartford Insurance or whoever, you're defending their client who may or may not be at fault, and trying to figure that out and decipher that. And at the end of the day, the person that's suing, they're hurting somehow.
Right.
They're hurting somehow, whether intentional or not, or set up or not. Because there's companies today that work for companies that try to find people that say that they're hurt at work, picking up heavy sandbags or something. Sure. Right? So it happens.
Yeah.
But that emotional side of things, you can't get rid of that. I don't care what kind of human you are. You that's got to weigh on you.
Well, so I think that it was extremely helpful for me to start on the defense side, because I could see the impact on the people who were having a claim presented against them.
Yeah.
And it was a perfect exercise in kind of human nature, where you have some people who readily own up to a mistake that was made.
Yeah.
You have others that are absolutely hiding and will never concede that they did anything to contribute to the accident, and then everything in between.
Yeah.
And those folks, I think, are equally deserving of a defense as those who are injured, who are pursuing their claim. And that whole process, just to be getting your legs under you and going to trial, doing depositions, knowing how to engage with clients, knowing how to engage with insurance companies, other fellow lawyers, I was able to get to a comfortable place where I felt like, okay, I don't know what that number is, however many hours you need of practice before you can feel like you've arrived. I got to that point and I was kind of coasting. I was working directly for an insurance company at that time with a great mentor, and their she did everything she possibly could to give me opportunities to continue with my career, but it was kind of a static place to work because there was very little opportunities where people left, that they left an opening and you could go to that next point. But at the same time, the work that I was doing, it was very repetitive, and I wasn't feeling challenged. I wasn't, and to an extent, I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I did feel fulfilled in the sense where I was helping people with the problems they had. I think giving them good representation. But when the case was closed, they were already unhappy to begin with.
Right.
And so it didn't even matter if you got an amazing outcome on a settlement that was for low money, or even if it was dismissed or you got a defense verdict. They were still just inherently not pleased that they had to go through that whole process.
Well, yeah, that's the
nature of the beast, right?
The only way I'm happy is if we don't have to do this at all.
And which you could never accomplish that.
Did you ever have someone that just, you have a talk with them and they're like, guilty? I'm guilty.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
No. I mean, a perfect example are like the rear end accidents where, if they're texting or not paying attention. Look, we're all human. We all make mistakes. And so it was wonderful when you have people who are candid and not trying to sell you some story that wasn't believable, right? And all that you had to do at that point was, okay, let's just figure out what was the extent of the injuries that were caused, what's the extent of the damages they sustained, and can we get it resolved for a reasonable amount, or do we need to go to a trial to have a jury decide? So fast forward to about not long after you and I were together, I guess, COVID 2020, I decided I need to get uncomfortable. If I don't get uncomfortable, I'm not going to learn. And I ended up jumping sides, and I went to a firm representing people who were injured.
Big firm in Boston.
It was, I think
Boston's are big firms. Like
sure. I will tell you this. I kind of, at the time, I don't think I realized it, but in hindsight, I know what I ended up doing was I didn't just go to some kind of, a high volume practice that advertise, a place that literally does not advertise. It's only word of mouth, either referrals from other lawyers or they're known. Basically going to like the major leagues of personal injury firms, where very high level, especially in the media, a lot of cases that we see on TV that there's news clips about and people know about it. It was an amazing transition. Talk about getting uncomfortable. I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? But so from the very beginning until I left last year, it was a daily exercise of learning something new and seeing the practice from a completely different perspective. But arriving usually at an outcome now where when it is resolved, people were generally at least content. They may not have been overjoyed. Some were, of course, but the people would not have agreed to the resolution or outcome, assuming it wasn't a trial, if they weren't on board with it and willing to accept it. And it was full circle, just finally made it a much more fulfilling process for me. And something where I did actually feel like I don't know if legacy is probably too strong of a word, but I felt like I was leaving a body of work behind, at least, that I could look back on later and say, okay, I'm proud of that outcome. I'm proud of how that ended up.
I don't know if I told you this. I worked for a company, and I'll give them a shameless plug because I think the company's amazing. Les Trackman's company, Purview, and they have a medical second opinion software. So basically, being able to take DICOM scans, all the difficult, very storage full, big storage capacity, MRIs, all your studies and everything, and put them into one place so that, if you have cancer or you have something, you're going to different specialists, all of your records reside in one place, which is crazy to think. You still walk around with discs and things when you go from one specialist to another. And so when I was working there in 2021, 2022, we uncovered that law firms are a great place for that. And so I worked with a number of firms like that in the country, and the stress level, I'd get phone calls in the middle of the night. It's like, hey, because you have to request the records and you have to, and the whole process, that's broken. And you do all these things, and they would call in the middle of the night. We need these records from Lake Tahoe, and we need this from here. And we're like, well, we can't do that. We hold them, right? We store them, we keep them for you. We do all that fun stuff. If you can't get all those people and they can't get the records into us, we can't help that. But you could sense the stress and then the dollar volume. And I looked at one of them because they show, and they're not a 800, they're not a put out volume. They're a quality, quality, not quantity. The lower number of clients, word of mouth, and billions and billions of dollars that they've been able to get for people in wrongful accidents and true wrongful accidents, right? Because some of them are huge. Some of the money payouts of these are huge, but the change in life, like I tell people all the time, I was in a car accident in 2001, I guess. In 2001, I had a spring water delivery business. I was with my black lab, was in the back of the van, and I was going down Bay Road. If anybody knows Bay Road, 495 overpass, there wasn't a light there on the exit ramp, and I came up over the overpass, and this guy just blew right through the stop sign, and I hit him, and it's 24 years ago, I can say this, I didn't have a seatbelt on.
Yep.
So, and I knew I was going to hit him, so I let go of the wheel, and I grabbed the seat to hold me, and in doing that, I compressed a vertebrae in my back, which never healed properly. And so they were at fault. It was wrong. He was cited, went through all the stuff. I went to the hospital, started physical therapy, and had a lawyer that reached out and said, hey, we can do this, this, and this. Guess what? I got a few bucks.
Sure.
Not a lot. And I definitely didn't get a recovery for the pain that I've got 25 years later.
Of course.
Like it equals to about, it equals to about nothing, right? Because my health and my lack of pain. So when you say about a payout, and when I say payout, it was like just over a 4-figure number. It wasn't like 6 figures or 7 figures or anything like that. It was, buying milk for a couple of months, So, but you think at the time, you're like, oh, this is great. But the reality is the pain doesn't go away.
It's really hard to manage expectations for an injured client, particularly somebody that has never been through it before.
Yeah. Because
the wealth of misinformation that exists will influence basically an uninformed opinion. Unless you're in the industry, you're not really going to know. But if you see a commercial for some of these buffoons, holding bags of money, and you begin to have this expectation that will not be realistic. And so that's where I think I try to get in as soon as possible with the client in terms of managing the expectation so that they're not disappointed, that they are getting what is appropriate when the time is right.
Yeah. And I mean, that's hard, right? Because you could say, hey, this is a realistic number for what you're looking at and what you're going to need, right? What are you going to need for long-term care? Like I still have to go every so often, I'll just go tie my shoe. And then I'll be shuffling around like Ozzy Osbourne, not being able to lift my feet up, an inch off the ground. I got to go to physical therapy for 4 months. Guess what? Not covered. Got to come out of my own pocket.
No,
insurance doesn't even cover it. So, and that's an unfortunate reality of what happens. But you tell someone, hey, this is what you can expect. And all of a sudden they go on, they turn their TV and it's like, I slipped and fell and I got $250,000. And it's like, why can't I get that? And it's, realistic expectations, because everybody's got to put, I tell people that I have occasional talk because I laugh at that stuff because they are the billboards everywhere. Philadelphia is wild. Oh, every single billboard.
That is it's mecca for wild.
Every single billboard. And I'll have a conversation with people every once in a while and be like, oh, that business must be great. And I'm like, yeah, that business must be great. But who pays for the billboard? Who pays for the commercials? Who pays for the offices? Who pays for the nice cars? Who pays for the salaries? Who pays? All that money's got to come from somewhere, and it's coming out of your settlement. So don't think that they're doing all this stuff just to be nice.
Sure.
And they're naturally, it's got to come from someplace. And the best way in the lowest cost business is referral-based business.
Absolutely.
That's all it is. I'm back in the software business, and I know my competitors listen to my podcast, and that's okay because they can't do what I do. My business is 100% referral-based. I'm in here right now on a Friday morning. I'll be here all day. I won't make a single phone call, and I guarantee you that I'll have the good fortune of having some form of an opportunity or lead. That's probably what that phone call was, because I just take care of my clients beyond their expectations. And then they in turn tell their friends and family. And then when that time comes that they need something, I'm here.
Word of mouth still reigns supreme.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely the best form of endorsement you can get. If somebody that you know and you respect their opinion and they had a positive experience, that you can't beat that.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the BeAuSm Podcast. If you are enjoying our episodes, please give us a 5-star rating review on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts. Those ratings and reviews do make a difference in helping us get more exposure, more listeners, as well as giving people an insight and understanding as to what they can expect when they listen to our episodes. Thanks again, and you are awesome. So you're in Boston, now you've got a wife, you got 3 kids, You've got a dog, you've got frisbee golf, you've got pickleball, softball, anything with a ball, basically. You're very active.
Try to,
doing all this stuff, commuting to Boston. You probably started during COVID, so you didn't have to commute as much, but then you were commuting to Boston.
True.
And then...
So this was a situation that is not even dramatic. It was really just a situation where, as part of my evolution, it got to a point where I began to form my own ideas on how to best go forward with a particular case, and I wanted to try my own recipe. And the place where you have full autonomy and control to do that is really where you just work for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so the partners I worked with couldn't have been more supportive and helpful. And really, all of them had been there at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So almost like a rite of passage where it was my time. I think if I hadn't done the move to go out on my own, now I don't know if it ever would have happened. And so I took the leap and bet on myself, left a very comfortable and supportive workplace for a creation of my own.
Yeah.
And I from the beginning, and Michelle has been such a fantastic partner and supporter of all of this, that from the outset I said, even if this ends up in an absolute failure where we're not operating a business that's succeeding, however that metric may be, it's okay. I just need to know. I have to try this on my own. I have to see if my recipe works. And that this was over the summer of last year. So I officially hung my shingle, to use the legal parlance, and September 1. And so Teravainen Law was formed at that time, and so far so good. Knocking on wood, the universe has been super supportive and helpful. Friends, family, former clients, and wherever other sources. Facebook pages, actually, believe it or not, I had no idea the power of a message board until going out on my own. It's been a really terrifying and amazing and fulfilling experience all wrapped in one.
I want to make sure that I saw this. You did win at least one case. I saw someplace that there was a settlement on a dog bite, maybe?
Correct, yeah. And actually, so when I was thinking about the message board, that was the case I was thinking of. I had worked with a family where they had a situation where I just wanted to help them. It wasn't for anything. I refused to be paid, and I'm not saying that's something you should do as a lawyer. You should take pro bono cases on. So I'm not doing anything that other lawyers also do. But we got through that issue, and months later, when this family must have heard that I opened up the office, there was a request on a message board, need an attorney for a friend who had a dog bite situation. And this family, first to respond, you should contact Dennis. And then after that, others who were familiar with me began to recommend me, amongst other good lawyers locally. And sure enough, I got the call, and we were able to, this is very rare, we were able to get the case, get it resolved for the full amount of the applicable insurance, basically within 6 weeks. And normally cases have a lifespan of 2 to 4 years. And so it was kind of an amazing, oh my God, I can't believe, but part of it was because of so many of the things that I learned at the other firm, and also bringing in whatever spice that I might have. That was a situation where a pit bull attacked my client who was house sitting for friends. And so she was in the uncomfortable situation of having to bring a claim. But she had a near-death experience with her situation. And, there's one thing about describing it and have somebody talk about it, but I was able to actually get the body cam footage from police officers that responded. And when I was speaking with the insurance company, I was on a Zoom with the adjuster, and we watched the body cam footage for about 5-8 minutes, and the adjuster, to her credit, just said, "Dennis, turn it off. I don't need to see anymore." So it was the best outcome we could have. It was only insurance money that got paid. She had no interest in pursuing her friends beyond the insurance. It was the most we could have gotten for her. And she's still treating, she's still recovering, but she is a tough cookie, and she was able to understand this is the best that we could get. And so talk about checking all the boxes. I mean, the only other thing I could have done is undo what happened to her. The next best thing was the outcome.
So you're 18 weeks in, average case is 2 to 4 years. You got a win already in 6 weeks. So that's your win so far, right?
We've had a couple other things, nothing like that, but from other friends, with every passing week, the word is getting out with people I've worked with or technically against. And the different groups that I'm a part of, the networking groups and the associations through the bar. I'm admitted in Mass and New Hampshire and Rhode Island. So the Massachusetts work is really coming in, and I'm trying to focus on getting more New Hampshire, more Rhode Island. I grew up in New Hampshire, so I have family and friends who live there. In Rhode Island, I have lots of friends who are there as well. So we'll see if this 3-state practice where we are this time next year.
Well, I mean, look, it's for you to have any wins in what's typically a long cycle in your first year, let alone your first 16 weeks, that has to give you that's the hardest thing with deciding to hang your own shingle. I did it. I decided to do it in 2018 as a passion project, if you will. I had a W-2, so I didn't take the full leap. Then I got fired in 2020, and I did some work with that Purview company and was able to keep things going. But then in 2021, I was like, I give up. I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to see if I can do this on my own. And I did it for a year. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I have 2 businesses of my own that run and that do okay. They're not flying private, but they keep the lights on. And then I get back into a technology space, which I have a good track record on. But just going out and putting yourself, I can remember in 2021 when I was like, you know what, I'm just going to I'm going to determine my own destiny. And I did with the software company. I went on board with those guys. They were a startup, and I said, don't pay me for a year. And it was hard. It was really hard. And there were a lot of times that I was like, I started with them on June 27th, and it's public education, local government. Their budget year is July 1st. So they weren't buying anything in the next 4 days from when I started. So I had to go a whole year cycle before that money was coming in where they could pay me a commission. And there was so many times I was like, did I do the right thing? Should I have just gone back in the cubicle? Not that I've ever had one. I've actually never had an office. But should I go back into the imaginary cubicle and work for somebody and do something? And it's like, now that I'm on this side of things where I'm starting to see the flowers bloom, I'm like, man, this was a hard ride, and it was worth every minute of it. And it has been. And the other thing is you got to do everything.
Yes.
Right? And that's
for better or worse.
Yeah. For BeAuSm, from day one, I've had to do everything up until a year we were just talking about before I got on, a year and a half ago. I was doing all of my podcast recordings. I was doing them in my office. I was doing them in my dining room, doing them in a Starbucks coffee shop. I was doing them wherever I could do them.
Truly grassroots.
All my QuickBooks, all my office stuff, all my contracts, all my everything. Like coming into Adam and ECAT and being able to do this and have him help out and do the things that he does. I mean, huge. Life-saving. And now I have someone coming on that's going to help do my bookings for my talks.
Great.
But I'll always know what that actually took. So if somebody ever comes in and they're like, well, this part's hard. It's like, no, it isn't. Because if you want, I'll give you all the other stuff. Then you can tell me how hard it is. And so that's the hard part, is understanding when you had a team, what it's like when you don't have that extensive team where you can say, oh, this person will do this person will do this, and I'll do the other stuff.
Absolutely. So, and this transcends industries. I think people like you, people who have started whatever venture that they have in whatever field that they're pursuing, it's inspiring to me. And it also gave me the courage a little bit to give it a go.
Yeah.
And so to even make it simpler though, and more organic, why I think it's worthwhile. And I think I know the answer already, but to ask you, are you inspired with the work that you do?
Oh, every day.
And are you feeling fulfilled?
Yeah. That's
you know,
that's the whole thing, right? That's what my therapist used to say to me. I'd go in and, I'd tell him how, life stunk or whatever was going on that was bothering me. And he'd stop me and go, all right, because everything's about money. Like if we look at the world today, it's there's a lot of pretentiousness out there. There's like, if you go on social media, everybody's got a Lamborghini and flies a private jet and goes on yachts and goes on endless trips and all that stuff. And that's unhealthy.
The keeping up with the Joneses.
It's unhealthy on both sides. It's unhealthy. Toxic. It's unhealthy on the person that's posting it because they feel they have something to prove. And it's unhealthy for the people that are reading it that just can't do these things, that they become envious, and it puts them in a rut. And I always tell people, when I post stuff of my travels, first of all, I don't play golf. It's like I play once or twice a year. I played in September, in Missouri. And by the third hole, the rest of the foursome, the other three guys are looking for me to hit my shot. And I'm wading in a river, took my shoes off, and I'm wading. I actually played barefoot because I forgot my golf shoes. I got the wrong size golf shoes with me. And so I was playing barefoot. And I'm just wading in the river because I just don't play that much golf. But I don't do a lot of things that people be like, wow. Like people will be envious of things that I do that are cool. Like I'm going to Missouri again. I go to Missouri probably once a month at this point or more. I'm going to Missouri for an event on Tuesday. And before the event kicks off Tuesday afternoon, I get to meet a guy at an event in November that he was a detention. He was a John Katie's his job, which is a teacher in a detention facility, kids waiting to go to court trial. He was a teacher for that, K through 12 in this county, and now he's a facility director in a school district. We just started randomly talking about family, and he's like, oh yeah, my dad has an elk farm. I didn't even know those things existed.
Neither did I.
So there's a contained elk farm that his dad has, and I'm going to go check out elk and pet them and stuff. Like, it's not a petting zoo. They use them for just like a cattle farm, but like that stuff is cool, but I don't put that stuff out on social media, be like, look at me.
You have the most interesting day-to-day of anybody that I know, and it's and not that it's not glamorous, it's just so random. The destinations that you have, the people that you're encountering, their walks of life. I don't know anyone else with that kind of exposure that you have,
and it's all like normal. Like that's the thing. It's like, to me, it's normal, but it's again, it's just finding, it's just looking for the good of people, looking for good people to do good things. Like 2 nights ago, I was talking to someone and they said, what was one of the coolest things that you can remember doing? I was like, that's easy. 2017, I was in Sitka, Alaska, and I was at a dinner, and a school teacher said that she had a family property. We were at a conference. It was a school conference. And she's like, my family's got a property that's on the water, and we've got horseshoes. All they had was, they don't have a house. It's just a beachfront piece of land that they had kayaks and horseshoe stakes and all this stuff. And everybody from the conference, they invited 100 people to go to the conference, built a bonfire, not that they needed it because it was daylight. And I was kayaking out in the ocean in Alaska at 2:00 in the morning. It's daylight out.
Fantastic.
Like, that's a cool life experience.
So cool.
That's free.
Yeah.
Like most of the stuff that I do, it's free. There's no cost to it. It's not glamorous, but it is. It's very, very cool. But we got way off on this whole thing.
No.
Talking about, but the social media. We were talking about social media, the glamorous side of it. Where were we going with this? We just disappeared. We just trailed off.
I mean, I guess the lesson of social media, it can be used for good, but it has to be looked at with an appropriate lens, right? And if I could do without it, I absolutely would.
Yeah.
You can't operate.
We might
a
be able to
business
do without TikTok pretty soon.
As a matter of fact, I think I saw walking in here, it was actually the Supreme Court confirmed that they're banned. So
Trump's going to try to So Trump tried to ban it. Now he's trying not to ban it. The Supreme Court has banned it. It's all over the place. Everybody wants to use social media. We just trailed right off. This is my ADD. Boom. Social media, like so many people think about influencers, and there's this new thing called de-influencers, which are people that aren't making everything perfect and proper. They're just real life living opposed to this other stuff.
Okay.
All these people think that, there are people that make money on social media, few and far between. Many people go broke trying to do it, and it's not worth it. Like if you're going to try to make money, I will never try to make money based on my social media posts. I'll try to make money leveraging my social media posts.
Sure, yeah.
And so I've got 3,800 friends, connections on LinkedIn. I know just about every single one of them. And I know that a post that I put on there that might have 20 likes, one of them is probably someone that could potentially use my services or something. And that's why they're looking at my stuff. I'm not posting my stuff with I hope I get a whole bunch of stuff so I can monetize it. I don't care about monetizing this podcast. I just want to help people.
This is
fun. Make this fun, right?
Yeah, this is a good exercise.
Like someone can go, hey, Dennis, I want to know a little bit about you.
Sure.
Right? Take this video, listen to this podcast, and if you think that I'm entertaining enough to represent you, let's talk more about it or something, whatever. But the social media craze is, it's nuts, and it's a necessary, like you say, the Facebook post is, that's your referral guide.
Sure.
And it can make or break you.
Yeah. I was talking with someone the other day, and they said how depending on which generation consumer that you're talking about, that will dictate which platform is where you want to filter or send your message. So the boomers, Facebook, the Gen Xers, I guess I fall into that category. We fall into that category. I guess that's the Instagram.
Yeah.
And then TikTok for those younger. So I don't know what is going to replace TikTok, but I'm sure something will fill the void.
Yeah. One of my 2025 goals is to have somebody do my social media. I want off of it. It just doesn't do me any good. It really doesn't. It can consume you. You can start going through especially the Instagram reel things.
Yes.
I know it's listening to me. Like something that we just talked about is going to pop up on there, right?
Yep.
And I just had an instance recently, and it was bad. I inadvertently went on my personal Facebook page, and I do have to start posting stuff for my book on that. And there's this person that literally posted that they didn't want to live. Oh, and I hadn't talked to the person in a while, and I immediately, my knee jerk is I see it and I just I call him, and I'm like, hey man, is everything all right? Leaving a message, and now I'm consumed for the next 2 days.
And that's not uncommon, sadly.
And it's bad. And then you see a post, an update from the person's family or someone that says they're okay. They were just having a bad day. And it's like, that's what people do now. They just put their bad day on social media, and they don't realize how it impacts somebody, which is terrible.
I think the lesson here, all the more to find those connections, the real life connections, and making sure that we don't forget about the face-to-face.
Yeah.
Grab a coffee. It'd be in the flesh, something like that.
Talk about digital hijacking.
Speaking of coffee, I need you to open this, please.
Oh.
And this, I was gonna try to surprise you with my shirt, but when I realized it was gonna involve taking layers off, I needed to reciprocate.
Oh yeah, now we're talking.
So
I got my Teravainen Law coffee mug,
and so hopefully there will be new iterations of that in the future. Where we can come back together and see where things are.
Absolutely, thank you. No, this is great. No, we met for coffee, and we discussed how I should find somebody that specializes in the part of law in which you don't specialize in.
I think it's good for any industry, right?
Yeah.
Find the specialist.
Well, and that's the hard. That's that's the thing that people have to wrap their head around when they have a conversation, because it's like when something in that field, you're like, let me call that person. You don't think that there's so much to it. It's like people call me about software, and it's like I know about one little microcosm of software. The rest of the stuff, I can't tell you about accounting software other than
Right.
I don't like it.
It's good to know your limitations.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, my limitations are long.
That's I say to people who end up having some kind of a legal issue, and if it is something I can help them with, I say, look, I don't know that I could help you, change your oil. I don't know that I could help cook a nice meal, but I know how I can present a claim to an insurance company and help get something back for you because of the injury you sustained from XYZ accident.
Well, I want to open up an investigation on who stole my duck. And then I want you to represent, because that's near and dear to both of us.
We're AirTag next time. We're going to put an AirTag on there.
So for the story, when I did the podcast in 2019, your youngest daughter gave me a rubber duck.
Tilly.
And it was something special to her, but she wanted to do it. She wanted to give it as a thank you for me doing the podcast and everything. And it was special. Like, I knew that it was special to her and it was a big deal. And so I started taking the duck with me and would randomly send a text that's like, hey, look at the duck at 36,000 feet. Look at the duck in Alabama. And I think the duck had to have gone to 40 plus states, a couple Canadian provinces. And I had it on a podium at an event and somebody stole it.
It's amazing.
And it's been MIA. So if anybody listens to this and you stole the duck as a joke, I want it back. Otherwise, I'm going to sick Teravainen law on you. And there is nothing that's going to stop us. So
we'll have to go to Barrett's and go to the claw machine and get a replacement if no one comes forward. Yeah.
No, this was great, man. So how do people get a hold of you? What is it that you can help with? And obviously share with their friends if their friends are going through something like this dog bite, and throw it all out there.
Sure. Yeah. So what I personally can help you with would be any kind of personal injury claim, be it a car accident, slip and fall on property, a dog bite, products liability, things like that. But don't feel limited in that, if my issue doesn't reach to that level, I can't call Dennis. Call me if there's any kind of legal issue, because I have so many friends and peers who do specialize in these other fields. And I'm happy to be the conduit to get you connected to them. Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island are the states where I practice. You can find me at denteralaw.com. You can email me, dennis@denteralaw.com. I take pride in having the access that you can call me directly on my cell phone when you're a client. I do not have you go through layers of people. You're getting me directly. And you can find my background information on the website, and also all the associated social media that we LinkedIn, etc. So I'm sure if you Google Dentera Law, you'll find whatever your preferred medium is to vet me.
That's awesome. No, this is all of my. I've opened this up to Easton businesses to come on and talk about what they do and share all the great people that are in my town. But these are all free. I don't get paid for any of these. And Dennis is just, he and his family are just great people. His brother-in-law, Scott, who I grew up with, they're just all amazing people. So if they're amazing people, they do amazing work. And I can't be more happy for what you and your family are doing and taking this endeavor on. And congratulations on your record-breaking time win, which makes all the difference in the world. Before we close up, the book is still coming right along, March 13th, 2025. We're going to have a pre-release for the Kindle. Paperback will not have a pre-release. I don't believe. We're having some challenges with that. They don't do them as often as I'd like. We're working on a launch signing or something, trying to determine what that looks like. But that's why Mark isn't in the hot seat today. He is working on editing and cover art and publishing and all the stuff that publishers have to go through, and he's had the tough job of co-authoring with me, or co-writing, so he's had to get into my head for the last 2 years as well, so he probably needs a break. But that will do it for another episode, and remember, if you can be anything, be awesome. Have a great day.
Find positivity throughout your life and work, just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.